Our afternoon slash morning lives for our regular 4 hour per day schedule in quite some time. In fact, one might even say that I've been taking some time off, which I have. I think I've really enjoyed it. I think that, I've been doing regular people shit and it's been nice. But you know what? Here we are back on this streaming schedule. So let's have a good day. So for the first 520 people in here, please do share out this live with a handful of friends, okay? All right? We need to get past all of the shadow bans and restrictions that TikTok is unwarrantedly placing on us, and it might take a little bit while. We might have to fight for it pretty hard, but we will pull it off, all right, ladies and gentlemen? And yeah, let's go ahead and go over the ground rules of the live just before we hop into our debates. The topic today is why are men better at leading than women, all right? So unless you are a misogynist that thinks men are just better at leading, please do not join the guest request. We are strictly and specifically only looking for people to debate that think men are better at leading than women. So if that's not you, feel free to hang out in the chat, make some friends, hang out in the Discord, but do not hang out in the guest requests. All right, we got the ground rules out of the way, so we're going to go ahead and hop into the debates. Once again, if you do think that men are better at leading than women, make sure to hop in that queue. Make it easy on us all. Hello, Tomcat. Do you think that men are better at leading than women?
In some departments, yes, not unilaterally.
Okay, well, that's a little bit of an arbitrary claim, so let's just clarify. Do you think that a man would be better at being the president of our country than a woman?
Yes, I would say so.
And that's what we want to discuss. So, yeah, why do you think a man would be better at being president than a woman?
I think men across the board are generally better at making detached decisions, that aren't directly related to their own emotions or personal thoughts or feelings. I think men are better, with raw logic.
Yeah, I disagree, right? So the idea that you're positing is that men typically drive their decision-making processes less reliant on emotions than women do. I would say all the empirical evidence that we'd have would point the opposite to be true. We could just start off with like two related subjects and just see where the conversation goes naturally. Would you agree that crime or violent crime is indicative of a very emotionally driven thought process?
Not always.
No,
very often,
not really.
but not always.
Very often. Well, for violent crime, I'd say that violent crime is never logical. I'd say that it's always indicative of an emotionally driven decision-making process. Would you say that you could logic your way into, like, the violent murder of a family of five? Probably not.
I don't know about that. I think if you're a psychopath, you don't have any remorse or any actual empathy, you could absolutely logic your way into that if it provides a benefit to you.
Christian, thank you so much for the $15 on PayPal. I really do appreciate you for the love, Christian. Everybody, please show Christian some love down below in the chat. Thank you for the $15 donation. I do appreciate that. And would you say, okay, Carissa, thank you for the $3 on Vim. I do appreciate you for the love. I understand what you're saying here. I'd still say that, this isn't going to be driven via given logic, but when you do predicate there being a psychopath, of course, it's going to be driven by something other than emotion because, as far as I'm aware, I don't think that psychopaths can, display or attribute any emotions or senses. But it's more likely than not the case that a violent crime is going to be driven by emotions. And we see that 92% of violent crimes are committed by men. And if it was the case that women were less rational and more emotionally driven, why do we see such an overabundance of men committing violent crimes?
Well, I would counter that right away with the fact that 70% of violent criminals come from single-parent households, predominantly single mothers.
And what does that have to do with the claim? If you want to pivot and make a different claim that single mother households have worse parental outcomes than single father households, you're correct. However, I don't believe that we could attribute this to the leadership ability of women because as soon as we would evaluate households with two parents in them, we don't see any parental outcomes regardless of the amount of women in the household. For instance, a household with two mothers has the same parental outcomes as a household with two fathers or a mother and a father. So we'd attribute that to something other than the sex or the gender of the single mother, and would probably correlate it to societal factors. Because if your hypothesis was true that women have worse parental outcomes than men, we would expect lesbian couples to have worse parental outcomes than gay couples, but we don't see that. So we could go back to my original claim. If women are more likely to drive their decision-making processes predicated on emotion instead of logic, how come men commit 92% of violent crimes?
Sure. Well, the reason I brought that up in the first place is to say that these men who are committing the crimes predominantly are actually lacking in a certain trait of masculinity. Men who are raised with fathers, in masculine households where there's a male head of household, what they learn is that they are not the center of the universe. They are dangerous, they are powerful, and they have to control that. Men who are raised without that, that kind of imposition of power, they become, kind of off the leash.
We've already disputed this because lesbian couples have the same parental outcomes as heterosexual or gay couples do. Meaning
I would like to see that study.
Of course.
What I do know, I'm not disagreeing with you on that, but I do know that lesbians have a very high rate of domestic violence.
I could give you an abundance of evidence for this. If you want to go to @ParkerGetAJob on TikTok, go to the bibliography in his bio, then click on LGBTQ plus parental outcomes. What you'll see is 22 pages of studies to justify this claim. It's an incredibly abundantly provable claim with an insurmountable amount of evidence to justify that it is true. You can't really dispute this one.
Sure, I'd be happy to look through that. I mean, I'm not going to dispute it without knowing enough about it.
Sure. Right. So now that we understand that it's not related to the amount of men or women in a household that would drive these outcomes within these young men, maybe it's time to take a step back and stop blaming the fact that men commit 92% of violent crimes on the women around them and blame it on the men. I mean, listen, man, all the evidence we have points towards that one single fact that men are much more likely to engage in thought processes driven off of emotion compared to women. It's not just apparent in the fact that they commit 92% of violent crimes, right? They also self-unalive 83% of the time, and they're much more likely to abuse hard drugs as an unhealthy coping mechanism to deal with unprocessed emotions. They're much more likely to engage in irrational, risk-adverse behaviors like drunk driving, reckless driving, or gambling. They also have a lower IQ on average, lower EQ on average. It's not looking good.
Yeah, but there's caveats to a lot of those things. Like the lower IQ on average, yes, women have a higher IQ on average, but it's also a much steeper bell curve. When you go into the top 1% of IQ, it becomes predominantly men. You go into the bottom 1% of IQ, it also becomes predominantly men.
I hear you. So if you think that leadership ability is predicated off of IQ, would you say that the average woman is better at leading than the average man?
That is a very, that's a genuine question.
You'd say no, right? So then you don't even make this
I don't know if I would
consideration,
give
so we
you a
don't need
hard
to
no
dispute
on
your
that one.
logic.
No. I'm just trying to be intellectually honest here. That is a solid question. I would say in some contexts, in many ways, yeah.
Yeah, so the average woman is better at leading than the average man. So seemingly
In an average situation, I would say so.
Do you think that we should drive generalizations off of averages?
Well, that's what generalizations are.
So you'd actually hold to the generalization that men are better at leading than that women are better at leading than men.
If you're talking about average situations, which something like being the president of the United States is not an average situation. That's a top 1% situation.
Oh, okay. Right. So then you're just going to be comparing the geniuses of both, and you're going to be driving that predicated on the IQ of the top 1%. Well, don't worry, because now we could just further dispute the logic. Right, it is the case that IQ studies are not indicative of an overwhelming level of general intelligence. B, and then B, right, there's a lot of social caveats that would play into IQ test scores, such as access to resources, allocations of wealth, etc. Are you a race realist, or are you like a normal person?
I consider myself a pretty normal person.
Okay, so you're not incredibly racist. You don't hold to race realism?
No.
Perfect, because that's going to be relevant to this next point. Okay, in America, the average white person has a higher IQ than the average Arab person in our country. However, in countries that are predominantly dominated by Arab individuals in the Middle East, the average Arab person has a higher IQ than the average white person. What this tells us is that there's social factors that can correlate into IQ test scores due to access to resources, position in the social hierarchy, etc. So we would actually expect to see more male geniuses and female geniuses, just out of virtue of the existence of the patriarchy and a lack of resources allocated to women compared to that of men.
I mean, respectfully, it seems like we're getting into academic word salad at this point. I'm enjoying the discussion, but I'd love to get back to some of the core fundamentals of it.
Do it!
Well, sure. When it goes back to, the reason why men and women behave differently to begin with, right? I assume you strongly agree with the theory of evolution, right?
Of course, I do believe in evolution. And evolution is actually one thing that tells us that women drive their thought processes with emotion less than men. They have thicker dendrites in their spine due to evolution, making them deal with stress better than men on average. And the reason why evolution is pertinent to this discussion is because evolution drove women to deal with stress better than men because of childbirth. So, I mean, if women are less likely to engage in thought processes or decision-making skills predicated on stress, we generally see them concern themselves more with logic. And Emma, thank you for the $2 donation on PayPal. I appreciate you.
Well, it would be very hard to say that anyone, male or female, is purely logical. And humans, I mean, across the board, are driven by emotions, men, women, regardless.
One of the things that claim, I would just say that we could take these facts that women deal with stress better than men to give us some reason to believe that they drive their thought processes off of emotion less.
Yeah, and that final conclusion that you walked down to, I would just not agree with there.
Okay. Well, I mean, I've offered you an overabundance amount of evidence. What is your evidence that women are more emotional than men?
I would say, for one, a lot of your studies and everything, like, I don't know if I would dispute the studies and the facts themselves, but I think there would be a lot to go into in the details there. Like, even the fact that you say men commit 92% of violent crimes doesn't necessarily mean that men are more emotional. It means that when they act on their emotions, it's more dangerous. I mean, you'd have to agree that a male, going out of control is far more dangerous, at least physically.
Isn't that how we categorize higher levels of emotion? Like, for instance, right, if like me and my brother are both super emotional because, I don't know, our mother just died, and I decide to take that emotion out by, I don't know, playing Fortnite for a day and like screaming when I lose a round, and then he decides to take that emotion out by like burning down a hospital, right? We're obviously going to say that my brother's more emotional than me. Right. So I think that the way we use the term more emotional in society is purely indicative of how extreme of an emotional response you give to a set of external stimuli. So you may have just made my point for me.
No, I don't agree that I have. Because I wouldn't agree that one person is being more emotional. One person is just being more violent. They could be equally driven by emotion. 100% emotional choices. One is just a very bad choice, the other is a very silly choice.
Okay, so me and my brother could be just the same as of emotional, right? Me who like screams when I lose a round of Fortnite, and him who like kills 30 people.
Sure, you can be just as emotional.
Gina, thank you for the $2 on PayPal. Yeah, I think that's bullshit. So then, okay, if I could be just as emotional as my brother, what the hell is your justification that women are more emotional than men? Michelle, thank you for the 20 work. Michelle, I really appreciate you, Michelle. Everybody, please show some love to Michelle down below in the comment section. Thank you so much. It means the world. Everybody, please show some love to Michelle down below. That is so incredibly kind of you, Michelle. Thank you, Michelle. So what is your justification that women are more emotional than men?
Sure. I would take this all the way back to a position of evolutionary psychology, where men are simply less valuable across the board. Men are fundamentally more replaceable than women have been for thousands of years. It's why men are the warriors and the people who take these greater risks, because you could lose 100 men and not really lose any, reproductive capability for your tribe. Whereas women, much more valuable off the rip. That's not saying more valuable like human rights wise. That's just saying from a purely evolutionary perspective. What men grow up with, what men learn from a very young age is that they are simply not valuable because they exist. They have to earn that. They have to provide that. And so their emotions in and of themselves don't actually mean anything. Obviously, men still have emotions, but the fact that I'm angry or sad or hurt or whatever it matters less. And men learn to cope with that. And so as a fact, later in life, they learn to be a little bit more distant from their emotions. Very often they still happen, but they're not nearly as connected to them in the same way that women are.
Oh, great. So you're basically saying that society, right, teaches women to deal with their emotions in a very mature manner. Meanwhile, society tells men to just stuff them down and ignore them. I'd say that this would make men much more prone towards emotional, irrational outbursts than women, which is a bad thing for leadership. What would a therapist tell you to do? Express your emotions in a mature manner, or stuff them down, let them boil up so you go commit 92% of the violent crimes in our country?
Well, sure. Again, I don't disagree with you fully on that, but I think we should go more into it.
Well, I think we have. I think that this perfectly demonstrates a negative quality that is present of the societalization of men, that is not present in the societalization of women. And once again, who set the system up to societalize men in this way? Men. And their leadership set society up to societalize men in this way. Just saying.
No, the problem there is you're going purely off of this social constructionism where we could simply rearrange society and it would make more sense. The reason things exist in the way that they do is because there are all kinds of factors that aren't just socialization. It's not that we treat men like they're less valuable or that their emotions are less important. It's that we have evolved this way because as far as evolution is concerned, men are less important.
No, there's no like objective standard that would determine that men are less important than women, right? You are making an inference given evolutionarily fact, and then you are predicating the socialization and treatment of men and their emotions off of that, right? Also, not to mention that today society definitely looks at men as if they are more important, right? Given the fact that you think they're better at leading, given the fact that a lot of misogynists think that they're superior to women, given the fact that a lot of people that would exist in the same realm as you predicate men as the backbone of society, right? I mean, that's just an undeniable fact. So it's absolutely all about societalization of men.
No, I really don't follow you down to your conclusion there. You know,
there's no objective standard of value in nature. It's completely predicated off of your inferences.
No, the objective standard of value is ultimately what gets your DNA into the next generation. The entirety of evolution is it's centered around that point. How do I make more of me?
No, that's what you interpret as value. Like, Autumn, thank you for the $10 on PayPal. I do really appreciate you for the love, Autumn. Everybody, please show some love to Autumn down below in the comment section right now. That's completely what you interpret as value. If we lived in a society where we had an overabundance of humans, so much so that they were drawing too many resources, and if we didn't fix this issue of too many people, everyone would die in 150 years. Would that be valuable then?
Would what be valuable?
Reproduction.
Again, valuable in the external sense? No, but valuable as far as your evolved monkey brain goes? Absolutely. You know, what we've evolved with isn't
what type of
relevant
value would exist there? There's no type of value that would exist there because we attribute value externally. Like intrinsic value just doesn't exist. Like, do you believe in God?
Not in the Abrahamic Christian kind of way.
Yeah. Okay. Great. No intrinsic value can exist. Definitely without a creator to deem it to be so. And you're like using like an inductive argument to prove intrinsic value. This is like literal fucking gibberish. You're literally just saying that intrinsic value exists in this trait driven by evolution, and that's an axis that I can't dispute. Like, that's your argument. That's literally your argument. What if I just say that an intrinsic, innate leadership ability exists in women that doesn't exist in men, and this is driven by evolution, and that's an axis that you can't dispute, and it's just objectively true, and nothing you could say will ever change it? Like, do you see how, like we could both just suggest these bare bones axis objective hypotheses and just treat them like they're utter fact with no resolve?
No, but the thing is, I'd be happy to go into the actual evolutionary forces. And what I'm not saying there's some intrinsic, godly, there's nothing like that. What I am saying is that the drives, the values, a lot of the wiring that exists in your brain is absolutely not the result of social constructionism. It's not made by the forces around you. It is wired in there from birth. It is shared by 99.9% of humans because the vast majority of our brain was shaped by evolution, and then some little bit on top of that gets nurtured in.
Gabrielle, thank you so much for the $20 and the 24 cents on Venmo, saying that I look bored. Maybe I just need some water. Everybody, please show some love to Gabriella down below in that chat for the $20 and the 24 cents. I do really appreciate you so much. Thank you so much, Gabriella. Everybody, please show some love to Gabriella down below right now, you guys. Okay, so what are the biological differences between the neuroanatomy of that of a man and that of a woman that make men better at leading?
I don't know if it would be so much of a neuroanatomy argument.
Well, that's exactly what you're making. You literally just said it's difference in the wiring of our brains, not driven by social construction, but rather driven by evolution. Of course, you'd be talking about the sexual dimorphism of a brain that of a man compared to that of a woman, and the differences that are relevant is going to be what is driving men to be better at leading or women to be more emotional, etc. So I'm just waiting for you to tell me what the relevant differences are. Because if it's not about the differences in our neuroanatomy and the quote-unquote wiring of our brain that's driving women to be more emotional, thereby making men better at leading, then as absolutely predicated on like socialization. Like, do you hear yourself? So it's like it's not predicated on socialization, and it's not predicated on biological differences. What is it predicated on? Your emotions?
No.
Your biases?
Okay.
Your misogyny?
See, before I even try and answer that, I don't understand why you're trying to dunk on me. Like, I concede points when they are to be conceded. I've been pretty polite. I don't understand why the aggression is here. Like, I'm happy to actually work out a conversation with you, find out where we agree and where we don't. But yeah, I think there is some, I should correct myself. There definitely is some neuroanatomy going on there. I'm not a neurologist. I'm not certified in that. I would love to learn a little more about it, but I just don't have the academic papers on hand to throw any meaningful claims at you there.
Okay, all right. And then also, I wasn't being aggressive or like quote unquote dunking on you. I was giving you an adequate description of what I actually believe is occurring in the world around us. Okay, we have now reduced your argument down to neurobiological differences between men and women that make men better at leading due to some like tangential argument, and you can't tell me what those differences are. Seemingly, that makes your argument arbitrary and unjust. Right. And I was just relating it back to the point of how I don't believe that it's predicated on neurobiological differences. I don't believe that it's predicated on any true social fact. And it's seriously just predicated on your own internal biases against women. And that's why you think men are better at leading than them. It wasn't supposed to be a dunk or aggressive. It was just supposed to be a description of reality.
No, I understand where you're coming from there. But again, what would you say? Like, what's your counterclaim to this? Are men and women perfectly equal? Are women better? Where exactly do you stand?
I don't think that gender categories, like the category of men and the category of women, give us like any information to dictate which one would be generally better at leading. Like, this is like asking, do you think that people that wear like Jordans or Nikes are better at leading? Like, who fucking knows? Do I think that people with blue eyes or green eyes are better at leading? Like, huh? Like that's the same type of response that I have to this statement.
Yeah, now
that's men or women.
That's where you get into the absolute absurdity. You just reject any fundamental differences between men and women at all.
That's not true. Of course there's going to be fundamental differences between men and women, regardless of how you define the terms. I predicate my definitions of man and woman off of social categories and which ones you'd hold to and which ones you wouldn't hold to. The fundamental differences there would be what social categories you pertain to. If even if you like classify your definitions of men and women off of like the male sex and the female sex, fundamental differences of sexual dimorphism within neuroanatomy, neurobiology, your literal like reproductive organs. Okay, those are fundamental differences regardless of your definition. But what I'm disputing and rejecting is going to be relevant differences between men and women or women and men that make one gender better at leading than the other. Okay, like there could be differences that are just completely irrelevant to qualify if one gender is better at leading or not.
Okay, that again came off as a lot of word salad. Are we talking about male and female, or your, again, socially constructed gender nonsense here?
About however you define the term, so I'd assume male and female.
Let's go male and female.
Yeah, so there's just no relevant differences between males and females that would make one sex better at leading than another sex.
Yeah, I don't think you need a background in neurology to understand that there are huge differences physically, mentally, emotionally. Men and women are such entirely different, categories. Like, to say it's just equal and anything could be anything based on social outcomes is where you get into absolute, like, modern academia.
So you're disputing what I'm saying, which is there's no relevant differences by just pointing out differences. Is there differences between people with blue eyes and red eyes? Sorry, green eyes?
Other than eye color, no.
No, but is there a difference in eye color?
Yes.
So who's better at leading? People with green eyes or people with blue eyes?
No, it would be irrelevant.
Oh my God! But there's such a big difference between the eye color of people with blue eyes and people with green eyes.
There is a lot of data to show that.
And there's no way around the fact that people with blue eyes and green eyes have different colors of their eyes, man.
Sure, but men and women have fundamentally different brains, which does
just like people with blue eyes and green eyes have fundamentally different eye colors.
Yeah, but your choices, your decisions, your emotions are very much relevant to the way your brain works. It's not very relevant to your eye color.
And that's the thing, man. I don't think that there's any relevant difference within the sexual dimorphism of the brain of a male or female that would make males or females generally better at leading. There really isn't.
Okay, so then let's go into like, how do you explain the entirety of history then? If there's no differences, why have men dominated in the way that you claim they do?
For the same people, for the same reason white people have. All right, we have
Why?
a system.
What reason is that?
Yeah, because access to more resources existing in the oppressor class, right? And we see less opportunity, right, for women or black people, right, to be in those positions of leadership. But then, like, once again, just the principle, class A has dominated in this sect, therefore they are better at performing in this sect. That logic ultimately fails. Like, for instance, class A men have dominated in the sect of surgeons. Following your logic, this would instantiate that men are better at surgery than women. But due to a multiplicity of studies, we know that the opposite is true, that women outperform men. Right? And then what would you say to someone that walked up to you and told you in 2007 that our country's never had a black president before? It must mean that white people are better at leading than black people.
No, I'm not saying it must mean, but you got to have a more plausible explanation.
What would be your response to the white supremacists?
The fact that white people across the board have simply produced more. I mean, if you look at...
What would you say to the white supremacists that would say white people are better at leading than black people because there's been more white leaders?
Well, it doesn't, as far as individuals go, I wouldn't follow that down to the individual. But if you look at white societies, white civilizations, yeah, we figured out, delivery pizza before other cultures, escaped malaria. It's just not even
think
comparable.
that white people are better at leading than black people?
I think at some point you got to look at the scoreboard.
I'm asking you a question. Can you answer it?
I think white civilizations have been far more successful. Therefore,
I'm
yes,
asking
white
you,
civilizations would be better at leading.
so white people are better at leading than black people.
White civilizations, white collectives, not white individuals.
What is a quote-unquote white collective constituted of?
Well, a society, a culture that is predominantly predominantly white. So something like ancient Rome, for
So
example.
you think that white people are better at leading than black people?
I think as far as civilizations and culture go, yes. Show me some evidence that shows anything else. Show me an African civilization other than Egypt.
See, this
maybe,
is the
that's
issue.
developed beyond like the
Tomcat,
wheel.
we don't even need to have this discussion. This is the issue. First of all, that statement was just incredibly racist. This is the issue. What are the
Yeah, but you can
biological?
call it racist, but you don't call it wrong.
It is wrong. What is the biological difference between white people and black people that makes white people better at leading?
I think there are cultural differences that exist in collectives and societies.
So, first of all, I don't think that we could even attribute this to these quote-unquote culture differences. If we can, this might be because white colonizers from Europe walked into Africa and destroyed their cultures forcefully with colonization.
How did they do that?
And then
If we're all equal, what?
with more resources. Yeah, with more resources. So, I mean, if you want a history on it because you wanted to interrupt me and ask me so badly, it's because during the times of ancient Mesopotamia, we mainly saw migration into European countries with an overabundance of resources, all right? And then as empires grew and spread throughout Europe, they had more immediate access to resources than societies that later migrated into Africa had, okay? Right? And due to the overabundance of resources, they were able to colonize these societies in Africa by stealing their resources, and which then set off like a negative feedback loop. Okay, you were like so fucking curious, so you had to interrupt me and ask me that. I'm happy I could answer your question, right? But like ultimately, what I did just want to say, right, was nothing more than the simple fact that there is absolutely no biological differences between white people and black people that would make white people better at leading. Unless like you want to like literally hold to race realism and phrenology, you're going to have an incredibly hard time justifying that position, right? An impossible time justifying that position. And the facts of the matter is nothing more than, well, if it has nothing to do with the biological differences between white people and black people, then in what sense are white people better at leading than black people? Wouldn't you just say that societies with more resources, right, are better at achieving than societies with less resources? Right, but no, instead you decide to say that it's about the white people and it's about the black people, and that's why it's racist and wrong.
I don't know if I disagree with the resources argument. Disagree with the resources argument. Like that's, I don't know. I mean, Africa has very plentiful resources, and you can look at societies, where they're like Egypt, for example, plenty of resources. Fertile farmland, rivers, things like that. not particularly better or worse off than a lot of white civilizations. There's also white civilizations that have existed in places that are relatively barren.
Okay, well, I mean, I explained it to him. I'm not gonna just let like racism like be explained in my life. Like, I mean, I explained it to you perfectly. I feel like it comes to a certain point where I'm just like sitting here like debating like a race realist that isn't listening. It's just like it just turns into like almost immoral rage bait, if that makes any sense. You know what I mean? Right, we're gonna move on to our next guest. That's almost like just like letting a Nazi sit on the live and talk about how the Holocaust didn't happen, just for me to be like, huh, what? Just so like the viewership grows. Like at a point, it just becomes like immoral and regressive, very harmful, pure waste of time. Hello, do you think that men are better at leading than women?
I would say no, not really. I mean, I really have like nothing.
All right, I do appreciate you for coming up. We are just looking to debate people that do indeed think this, y'all. Hey guys, make sure we are in the queue that we do indeed think that men are better at leading than women. I want to have confidence that whoever I do click on in my queue, they are absolutely a misogynist. We are going to go ahead and hit a restart on the stream here shortly. I'm just going to use the restroom real quick, grab myself a cup of water. I'm already getting a little lightheaded. What's up? Do you think that men are better at leading than women? All right, they left. All right, you guys, please only hop in the queue if you do indeed think that men are better at leading. Let's get mad at the people that are in the queue that don't think that. We're going to stigmatize you if you join the queue and you don't think that men are better at leading. By the way, Derek, you're running away with your tail between your legs, talking all that loud in the comment section, but won't accept my invite to come up onto the stream. Hello, Day, do you think that men are better at leading than women?
Yes, sir.
All right, why is that?
I think instead of going into like the points like you said before about a lot of people like to go to psychology, biology. I think what was my man's name, Bobcat, before this, he mentioned some historical facts, and then that's when you had mentioned, I don't know, you don't like to get into that point, so I don't even know if I could bring up that topic because you had kicked him off. So I don't want to get into the same topic, and if it's just
are you also like a racist who's just like
no, I'm religious. I think everybody was created
and will ignore fact when presented and instead continue to reiterate racist lies that have been.
No, I think everybody was created equal under God. So
Charles, thank you for the $2 on Venmo. I do appreciate you for the love. So God.
No, like I said, I wouldn't consider myself a racist. I think everybody was created equal under God. But I do believe there's differences. I believe you can't ignore differences though. But just socially, like I said, we'll look at the best leaders in history. Do you think it's only because, like you said, the patriarchy, because they were, or do you think they actually had adequate leadership skills that put them there, and it was only because women weren't allowed to get into these positions of power that they were so successful?
What are you asking?
Do you think, like, if we go up historically and we're bringing up, like, let's look at examples in history of male leaders, the most successful leaders that were males in history. Do you think it's just because they could
male leaders throughout history than female leaders because females haven't had the same opportunity to become leaders as males?
Okay, that's what I was asking you.
On the contrary, I appreciate you for the galaxy. Yeah, so systemically oppressed from becoming leaders, right? And like the overarching analogy here that I continue to make is the same thing is true in the dynamic of race, right? And unless like you're just vehemently a bad person, you probably don't think that white people are better at leading than black people. Right. However, we see an overabundance of white leaders throughout history, right, and a lack of black leaders throughout history. Proportionally,
you had mentioned because of colonization when he had brought up that point because they had the resources. Obviously, you said because they had more resources. Well, Africa on average had the most resources, and there was people there longer than Europe. If you believe in evolution, correct?
So there's been people in Africa longer. Right. However, we do see with the rise of civilization in Mesopotamia that we generally saw more people spread into Europe. And then secondly, like once again, he made my point for me. Right. He went on to say, oh, like apart from like the more advanced societies that have existed in Egypt. Well, let's talk about the sub-Saharan societies. Well, it is the case that there's existed more resources in Egypt than sub-Saharan Africa. Right, especially when we start considering colonialization of the continent. Like, I mean, he made the point for us. More
how
resources.
How would you explain Vikings domination. In Bear in Scandinavia? How would you explain their success in the world? They didn't have any resources, did they?
I don't know what you're asking me, and like that's probably the extent of my knowledge. So like I don't know even how to respond to that because I haven't studied Vikings. But I don't think that studying Vikings is necessary for me to make a very proficient point. Overwhelmingly, my point is that there is no biological differences between men and women that would make men better at leading than women. And the reason that we see more male leaders throughout history is because of a higher access to opportunity and the oppression of women. And that's the point.
You
What's
agree
your
that
response?
leaders? Do you agree that leaders have to be able to take more risk on average to be successful?
Do leaders have to take like more risk on average to be successful? It's different. One thing I could say is like be better at like rational risk taking. It's probably a good quality of leadership.
Okay, and you don't believe on average men take more risks or more risk takers than women?
Oh yeah, no, men take more risks than women, but not when we
Yeah.
isolate for rational risks. All right, men are more predisposed towards things like gambling, drunk driving, reckless driving. Irrational
yeah.
risk taking is a very negative quality of leadership. Like, for instance, let me ask you a question. What would a good leader tell someone standing outside of a casino with their last $300 in their hand? Would they tell them to walk in the casino and bet it all on black? Or like maybe take some more appropriate rational risk take, such as an investment within the S&P 500 for a lower return over the course of the next 10 years? Maria, thank you for the $5.
I'd say 99% of gamblers quit before they hit big.
Okay, so
No,
now
I'm
you're
just
gonna
kidding.
go
No,
from
I'm just
really
joking.
gambling. Oh,
I
okay.
know, but-
So then you'd understand my point here that irrational risk taking is bad. Rational risk taking can be good. So demonstrate to me a study that indicate that men are more likely to engage in rational risk taking.
And I think that
as far as
just
I'm
goes-
concerned, the only thing that tilts the scale on overall risk taking towards men is irrational risk taking because they predicate their decision making processes on emotion more.
I think it just goes to the extremes because even if, okay, let's say these unrational risk taking, even unrational risk taking, some of those risks lead to high success, right? And I think that's when we
It
talk
doesn't
about
change
when
the
you bring
fact
up
that they're
IQ.
irrational and wouldn't be taken by a good leader. For instance, let's just assume that there is a 3% chance if we nuked Russia right now, Russian expansion would no longer be an imminent threat to the lives of so many innocent people, and somehow not one innocent Russian would lose their life. But the other 97% chance is we genocide innocent Russian civilians and it starts World War III. If, like, I don't know, Biden were to hit that big red button, would Biden be making a good leadership position? No. No, 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 no. Right?
Right.
Those irrational risks absolutely can have like an associated low rate of good return, but even if one is taken, we'd still say that was a bad decision for a leader to make. Big Country, thank you for the Vespers. Thank you. I do appreciate that. It's good to see you, Big Country.
Right.
Another example of this is like a single father of three betting his life savings at the casino. An incredibly low percent chance that he will walk away a millionaire to be able to provide to his family for the rest of their lives and create generational wealth. But even if he did walk into the casino, took that chance, and was able to become a millionaire, I'm still going to look at him and be like, bro, what the hell were you thinking? You could
Right,
have
I agree. And I
destroyed
think
your
I think it's
family.
different when you have other people relying on you like that. And we are talking about leaders, so that
Do
does
people
matter.
rely on leaders?
That's what I'm saying. So that's why I mentioned that. But at the same, I think the
Big
argument is
Country,
just.
thank you for that, mustache. I appreciate you.
I think this argument, people, it's just going to end up in the extremes. Like when people bring up IQ, well, they say, yeah, well, men on average will have a higher IQ, or not on average, my bad, in the bell curve on the extremes. And on average, like, I think that guy agreed with you when he had said, like, on average, yeah.
So what's your
we'll
argument?
have a higher IQ.
So why do you think men are better at leading than women? You still haven't given me an argument.
Well, I had mentioned historical. Well, I could really, my man had, it's going to be repetitive to what the first guy had said. So I was just trying to bring up a different topic to make it more interesting.
No, the topic is why you think men are better at leading
I mean,
than
not
women.
topic,
You're allowed
different
to
points
argue
to
that
make
point
the-
however you want. Feel free. Give me a point. I'm waiting.
Well, I had mentioned,
You mentioned
Well, I
risk taking. I thoroughly debunked that point. You'd have to isolate for a study that would demonstrate to us all that men are more likely to engage in rational risk taking. Can you isolate for that variable and provide me a study that demonstrates that's true? No. Okay, so the point fails.
right. But you had also brought up a point. What was the study you had brought up? Oh, with the lesbian couples. Dude, how many lesbian couples raising children, dude, adopted are really,
Millions.
is there really, do you think there's enough that they took that study to make it a viable study?
Yes.
I just don't think that's into like,
You understand that we could account
many-
for like 300 million people in the general American populace through like a sample size of like less than 10,000. Like Pew Research does it all the time, right? We calculate.
But how
for these
new
things.
is that? And it's a college.
One moment. We calculate for these things with the use of like literal mathematics and data science. Okay, right? And the fact that we've had millions of lesbian couples to evaluate and do these studies on over the course of the last 30 years, right, provides more than sufficient reason for us to believe that it's true, right?
do they really do that study with millions though?
No, because we never do studies on sample
know,
sizes
but just-
representative
it's
of the
such a
population of
new-
millions of people. You think that
Okay.
lesbian couples are new?
Adopting children, it's pretty new.
Oh, and how new? Or how old does it have to be for you to consider it as a feasible?
And then who's
field of
doing?
study?
And then who's doing these studies? Some
Wait,
college
hey,
kids.
I have a question. Is vaping bad?
Yeah,
How do you know that? Because vaping is newer than lesbians adopting children.
right. But
Oh,
I don't think anybody disagrees. I think people would disagree with the lesbian having children. Nobody disagrees that vaping isn't bad.
Well, that's the thing. If it's predicated off of how quote unquote new it is, saying that it needs to exist for X amount of time in order for us to study it, well, vaping's too new to determine if it's bad, right? But obviously you recognize that that's not true. Therefore, right, something can exist in the last like 50, 60 years on the greater scale, right? And it still be a viable pool of evidence for us to research the outcomes
Right.
of.
And I would really like. I haven't looked at. I would like to look at that study to see what kind of things they actually measured on how that would go. So I'll look at. How do you find that one again? You told it to the other guy.
At Parker, get a job. Go to the link in his bio. Go to his bibliography. Click on LGBTQ plus parental outcomes and read through 22 pages of cited works. It is an insurmountable amount of evidence to justify that this is true. It is
Right.
so easy to demonstrate. People have done it time and time and time again. In fact, it is incredibly well demonstrated point. The only counter argument that you'd have is literal homophobia.
Well, and then that's where I would get into my main. When you ask why are men better than women, I would point me personally to the Bible, biblically. But then we would don't agree on that because you're not religious, and then it would become a debate on religion, right? So and
No,
then,
we don't even need to do a debate on religion. We're going to assume that your damn book is telling the truth. We're going to
Okay.
assume that every single word in the Bible is truthful. And now, what does the Bible tell us about men and women leading? It says that the men got to lead, right?
correct.
All right. So obviously, if this all-knowing, perfect, loving, good God, right, gave us this truthful evaluation that men are better at leading than women, right, because of the way that he designed men and women, what are the differences in how he designed men and women? We'd be able to study those. We really would. Look at the anatomy, look at the biology, look at any biological fact of a female, compare it to that of a male, and tell me what the relevant differences are that God innately designed into us all that makes males better at leading.
Well, I'd say look at religious, look at marriages in a Christian word, or even not even Christian, just most religious, Abrahamic religions, where the man usually leads the household. Women who accept the man as the leader, usually
Well,
they're
that's
more.
not the question that I asked. If
But-
God made men better at leading than women, that means he designed women differently from men to make the men better at leading. So what's the difference in how he
Well,
designed
maybe-
women
well,
to
you
better men?
can't- you
What
can't
are the relevant
comprehend-
distinctions within our biology between men and women that make men better at leading?
Well, you can't comprehend God's creation to that T because it's
Yes,
God.
we
You can't
can.
comprehend. It,
Yes,
just
we
because-
can.
But we can look
Because
at. But
we're not evaluating God. We're evaluating God's
creation, right?
Like for instance, if you and me are build bridges for a living, if we're both engineers that build bridges,
Okay.
and like we agree that my bridge is more structurally sound than your bridge, we'd be able to evaluate why by looking at the differences between the two bridges.
Yeah, but
We'd be able to
humans
say
are
that-
so
one
much
moment,
more-
One moment, stop talking. We'd be able to look at my bridge and say, well, my bridge has more support beams. Maybe the concrete has set for longer. Maybe it's a little bit thicker. Meanwhile, your bridge has less support beams. You use different material. The concrete's a little bit newer, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's how we're going to evaluate how my bridge is stronger than your bridge. So when you posit the claim that God designed men to be better at leading than women, we could actually empirically discover and evaluate that claim by looking at the differences in the biology of a man compared to that of a woman And you could tell me what differences make men better at leading.
But I don't think you could compare human beings to bridges, dude. It's so much more. It just.
No, the funny thing is we can absolutely make that comparison because of our unique understanding of the human anatomy and biology.
My
Are
point
you
was
just
gonna be-
saying that there's some undiscovered neurobiological difference between men and women that make men better at leading?
Possibly, but why can't we look at? Why
And
can't
see,
we
that's
look
your issue. Now we've just related your claim back to misogyny. So this
Well-
guest is literally saying that men are better at leading than women because
Well, why don't we look
men
at examples?
are simply built different than women, and we don't know how it's built different. We don't know what the neurobiological differences are between men and women. We don't know how it functions. We don't know how it executes. We don't know anything about it. But it definitely exists. Like, that's just misogyny. You understand that this is also the same thing that white supremacists did with black people for like hundreds of years? Like, let's talk about like phrenology and all of that shit. Okay? This is where white people would say that white people are more dominant and black people are more submissive. And it's something to do with our neurobiology and dimples in our skulls. We don't really know what it is, but it definitely exists. And that tells us that it's true. You are doing the same thing, but with men and women.
But why can't we look at the most successful relationships? Let's look at examples. The most successful relationships are led by men.
Oh, no. We actually don't see any difference in the success rate of a relationship led by a man, quote unquote.
So religious-
compared to that of a lesbian couple. In fact, we'd even see like worse outcomes within like relationships as led by men and like the LDS cult or religion. And once
Yeah, I
again,
don't
this is a
agree with that.
complete pivot away once a fucking again. I just want it to be so incredibly clear that I thoroughly debunked your point, right? You just weren't even listening and you didn't even respond. And then also a lot of the facts that you're going to be using to evaluate the efficacy of more traditional marriages that are quote unquote led by men are going to be things like divorce rates, are going to be things like report of DV, etc. You understand the women in a lot of those relationships are too scared to tell their husband that they're wrong or too scared to divorce them, making them look statistically quote unquote better on paper, when in all reality that's false.
But that's where are you getting that from if there's no statistics? You're just drawing that conclusion then to make your point look better.
Buddy, you literally just told me that there's a difference between the neurobiology of a man and a woman, and you don't know
There's
what
not?
it is, but it makes men better at leading. You fucking idiot.
No, I said it's possible. I didn't say there was. You asked if it was. I said that's a possibility because we don't know. Are you
Oh, wait, so you're saying that you don't know what makes men better at leading, but you just do? You don't know what makes them, but you just know they are? Is that your claim?
you're going off of evidence? Yeah. Do I have to know to see things?
What? You don't have any evidence of it.
I just gave you
admitted to
evidence.
it.
You keep denying it with these facts on lesbian relationships.
So
Well,
what's
let's look
the-
at-
what's
what
the
about
evidence?
what about male together relationships?
Yeah, no
How do those
difference in
usually
the
work out,
outcomes
dude?
than lesbian
What about the
couples.
drug use in those? What about the violence in those?
There's no difference in the
relationship?
there's no difference
Oh
in the
my
outcome
God,
of two
dude.
men,
Yes, there is.
a woman and a man and a man and a woman. I've given you once again a 22-page bibliography to justify that.
No,
you're
I didn't.
incorrect.
I said what about man and man relationships?
Oh, wait, drug abuse? Wait, there's actually higher rates of drug abuse. You want to know why? Because men as a whole, regardless of their sexual orientation, commit 83% of hard drug substance abuse as an unhealthy coping mechanism to deal with unprocessed emotions, because men are more dependent upon emotions in their decision-making processes.
Yeah, man.
It has nothing to do with the fact that they're gay, and all to do with the fact that they're two men. Thank you.
Yeah, because it's well, then that gets into why it's unnatural and it won't work because it's two men.
Once again,
But if it was a man and a woman.
No. It literally has all to do with the fact that there's just two men, and men are more likely to abuse hard drugs. That's all it is. Men commit 83% of hard drug substance abuse as an unhealthy coping mechanism to deal with unprocessed emotion.
Right.
So the reason why you see more drug abuse in a household of two men compared to a man and a woman is because in one relationship, you have just one man who's at a higher propensity to abuse hard drugs. In the other relationship, you have two men that are at this higher propensity to abuse hard drugs.
Right.
This doesn't tell us
I
anything
don't-
about gay people, but this tells us a lot about men.
Right.
And if you
But-
want to so you were trying to stigmatize gay people by relating higher rates of hard drug substance abuse, will you now stigmatize men for
Well,
that
I'm saying-
same reason?
Well, yeah. Well, the men are always on the far ends of the extreme. I think we agreed on that earlier when I had stated that. Just
No,
like
it's not
in
even the
IQ.
extreme. No, it's not the extreme. Men commit 83% of hard drug substance abuse. Men commit 73% of self-unalivings. Men commit 92%
Yeah, but what kind of men?
violent crimes.
What kind of households are those men coming from?
What do
Are they coming from traditional households where the man's leading? I doubt it. And when with the mom and the father are together and they're leading in a religious household, I doubt it.
Once again, now you're talking about the parental outcomes of different family structures. We see no difference in the parental outcomes of two women, two men, or a man and a woman.
Well, just like how he mentioned last time. What
One
about?
second, I just want to let you know that I completely disputed your claim. You said that religious households have the best parental outcomes. Meanwhile, non-religious, non-traditional family structures have the worst, right?
I don't. I'd have to look. Well, it's just there's so many more.
you actually wanted to pivot away from
There's so
using
many more.
One moment, you actually just wanted to pivot away there, right, from the fact that you try to use drug abuse to stigmatize gay people, and as soon as I use your own logic to stigmatize men, you want to pivot to the efficacy and parental outcomes of family structures. And now that I fucking railed you on the efficacy of family structures, now all of a sudden you have no fucking clue what you're talking about. Right? If religious traditional family structures had better parental outcomes than non-religious, non-traditional family structures, we wouldn't expect to see lesbian couples having the same outcomes as gay couples, having the same outcomes as heterosexual couples.
But my point again, it's such a wide difference in how many there are. How many? Okay, let's compare. How many?
Dude, use your brain. When we're doing studies, it is per capita, right?
How many more studies do we have on the traditional religious family parental outcome than we do gay? You're going off of what? How many studies, honestly, are there in that thing? What, one study, two studies from a college where we can't even get the...
There's 22 pages of studies.
Dude, that's not a lot, real honestly, if you look into studies.
Yes, it is.
Pages.
Oh my God, you're insane.
Dude, there's some studies with
My
thousands.
own bibliography. No, not 22 pages of studies. 22 pages of a bibliography sourcing different studies, which on their own are 50 to 100 pages. Oh, if you were just asking for the overall amount of pages cited in this bibliography, it's going to be upwards of 500, maybe even close to 1,000. That is more than sufficient evidence to justify my claim. Can you actually give me one study that would demonstrate that lesbian couples have worse parental outcomes than heterosexual couples?
Well, I don't really have these studies on hand. I didn't even know I was going to debate
hypocrite.
I didn't know I was going to debate Mr. Dean today.
You
Mr.
hypocrite.
Dean, the professional debater,
You
dude.
hypocrite.
If I honestly,
so you said you told me
prepared.
that a 22-page bibliography linking to over 1,000 pages of study is not sufficient reason to believe that I'm correct.
I just
But
have to
you
look into
and
it.
your
But
tiny
I'm
little
going
brain
off
of
pure-
emotions and no studies, now you're right and I'm wrong.
But let's go off of, I'm going off of, because I didn't have these studies on hand.
You're going off of your emotions. I'm going off of over 1,000
bibliography,
pages of studies. And you're saying that I don't have sufficient evidence to believe in what I do.
Okay, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this honest question. In your day-to-day life, just what you see from your whole life growing up, do you see more successful outcomes in traditional parenting, relationships, whatever, just in your day-to-day life? Do you not think that those are more successful and it leads to more successful children?
No,
than
I don't. I think it leads to less successful children. If you're just asking about
Interesting.
anecdotal
Why do you think that?
experiences. Yeah, because we're relegating roles and distributing them to individuals such as the mother and the father, not based upon their aptitudes or abilities, but rather based upon what's in between their legs. And that's what's fucked up. Okay.
But when you put that on kids, don't you think
the reason? One moment. The reason that that's wrong to do, right, is because being a man, being a woman, right, don't have any tenacity or don't like play into the picture of who's better at cooking the food, raising the kids, working, breadwinning, etc. Right, but yet it places those arbitrary standards on the man because of their penis and the woman because of her vagina. Right, so it creates less efficient outcomes. Right, and if we were instead, right, to distribute roles and responsibilities within a relationship, within a family structure, based upon aptitudes and abilities, not what's in between your legs, we could expect we could expect better outcomes because there'd be a higher level of efficiency demonstrated within the family structure. Right, like for instance, maybe the woman has a master's degree in STEM and the man went to culinary school for 2 years and is really good at cooking. So if the woman became the breadwinner that came home to a home-cooked meal for her and her kids every day from the husband that knows how to get those micros and those macros built into to the lasagna, right, where we would just expect more efficient outcomes, right? The family as a whole is going to be making more because the woman has a better degree to make more money, and they're going to be eating better because the man had 2 years background in culinary school. But if we were to force this hypothetical family structure into traditionalism, well, now all of a sudden, the woman with a STEM degree is going to be staying at home raising the kids and cooking the food. Meanwhile, the guy with 2 years experience in culinary is going to be going out and working minimum wage at the local city market because he never got a degree and instead attended culinary school and dropped out. Like, I mean, that's just like one verbal demonstration on how traditionalism can lead to the least efficient outcomes.
Would you agree that traditional relationships have more structure in the household?
What
On
does that
average,
mean?
religious. Okay, let's say religious.
What do you mean
whatever.
more structure?
It's just something to follow when you're, say, religious. When you have something to go by. When you're just going off of, okay, let's see who has the most, who's more adequate at this and that, figuring it out. But when you have this structure, don't you agree that structure is important for especially young children?
No,
when
I
they're-
wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that it has more structure. It just has a different, more easy to understand structure. Because you're
And you don't think
relegating the
that's-
structure on the basis of PP and vagina instead of, oh, let's consider aptitudes and abilities to demonstrate who'd be better off to create a more efficient outcome.
Yeah, dude,
Like,
but you know
oh,
it's not just pee and vagina.
You're just it is that's all that traditionalism is. Tell me I'm wrong. Wait, who's supposed to be the breadwinner?
The man,
PP. Okay, who's supposed to raise the kids?
vagina.
See what I mean? It is all about the PP and vagina. You
I know,
folks.
but that's not, dude. There's so much more that goes into it than just
no,
pee.
no. There's not. There's seriously not.
But we already agreed that there's biological difference besides pee and vagina, men and women.
Would you say that if the woman had a master's degree in STEM, that she should be the breadwinner?
I'm not against women in the workplace.
No,
dude.
no, no. I want you to
believe
tell
they'd be
me.
happier
I want you to
at
tell me
home.
who should. Who should? If we have a man and a woman and 2 kids, the woman has a master's degree in STEM, and the man got an associate's degree in culinary. Who should go out and work the job, and who should stay home and raise the kids? Assuming they want someone to stay home and raise the kids.
And it's their goal is to make the most money.
The goal is to have the best parental outcomes by making the most money to provide the best well-being and lifestyle to their children as possible.
Well, if they want to have the most,
The best parental
if they want
outcomes
the
is
kids to
their
be the
goal.
most. Okay, well then you would want the mother to be home with the children.
Ah, you
her
idiot!
nurturing-
My
Wait, okay,
god!
let me ask you
Oh
this.
my god!
Let me ask you this.
Pee-pee
Do you think
and
women are naturally more
vagina.
nurturing
It's
than
all
men?
about that.
But do you think
It's
women
all
are
about
naturally?
that.
Do you think women are naturally more nurturing, or no?
I think that
you don't agree
women
with that.
are better at empathizing with others, which not only means that they're better with children, but it just means that they're better with all humans, and children happen to be a part of humans. But that also makes them better at leadership. You dumbass.
Well, then you'd agree with me. It'd be better for her
No,
to stay home
dude,
with the kids.
dude, yeah, like this is such
Well,
like a
we'd
low
agree.
IQ thing, and I'm like demonstrating to you why it's wrong. I think that women are better.
It's not. But then
No,
you
I'm
just
not.
agreed
Will you
with me.
listen to me? Women are better.
Okay,
Dude, you're not
you
listening.
disagreed that-
Sit the fuck down and listen to Dean. Okay, women are better with humans, with people, with empathizing, with talking, with understanding. Okay, are children a subsect of humans?
Right.
Yes. So does that mean if we want to isolate for children that women are better at empathizing, understanding, communicating, and teaching? Yes. But this applies to all humans.
So?
All this means is that women
Okay, so
fucking
but children
clear.
are part of that. So it'd be better for the woman to stay home and raise the children because of what you just explained.
Oh my god!
Right?
On the inverse, like
Because they're better with
on the
people
in-
on average, and kids
on
are
the
people.
inverse, can I say that it's better for the woman to go out and work the job because she has better leadership skills, which will help her climb the corporate ladder faster to get into more higher positions of power?
I mean, if she's one of those women, if she's one of them on the fringe, that women that
on
are
the
better at
fringe.
leading than her.
Wait! I'm so sorry. If you don't think that women have these communicable people skills, then why do you think women are better with children?
I never said they didn't have good people
Oh, I'm
skills.
so sorry. Is
That's not all that goes into being a good leader.
A positive quality of leadership? Oh, okay. So this
Yeah, I'd
is
say
a
so.
positive quality of leadership that women have that men don't. Oh, okay.
Right,
okay.
but that's
so
not
then
all
what
that
else
goes into leadership.
Ganny, thank
But
you for
I'm
the
sa-
gift. No.
I'm not saying
You
that
stop
there's
talking.
all
What else
men.
goes into leadership that makes someone better?
We talked about risk.
Oh, dude,
like
I
we had said,
absolutely
risk
fucking
taking.
dunked
We
on
talked
you in that
about.
point. Do I need to reiterate and embarrass you again? No.
We
One
talked
second.
about IQ.
I absolutely dunked on you on the risk point. Do I need to embarrass you again?
You said not rational
Do you
risk
agree
taking
with
on
that?
average, but
Or do you
we could
dispute
still
my
include
dunk
it.
on risk?
I didn't- no, I
so
agreed
then
with you.
risk is
I did
not
agree with
a
you.
point why you think men are better at leading than women, because you got dunked on that point and you agreed that you lost.
I didn't agree that I lost. I agreed that we agreed on
but
that.
the fact that we
But-
agreed on that means that you conceded to my view. And my view doesn't dictate that men are
But
better
it's
at women
not.
in
I'd
this
agree
regard.
that it's unrational. But I didn't agree that. I
Do
didn't.
you understand
I
what you
didn't
just said?
Agree
You said that you didn't
just because
concede on that. You agreed with my view. Agreeing with my view is conceding, sweetheart. Yes, it is.
No,
it is.
but
That is what a concession is.
I think-
that is what a. No, one
think
second.
irrational
If
risk
I
taking-
say that it's a warm day outside, you say that it's a cold day outside, and you agree with my view after dispute and conversation that it is not a cold day outside, instead it's a warm day outside, you conceded.
I
So
agree
when you
that
say
it's
that
unrational,
risk taking is a positive quality that men have that women don't, that make them better at leading, then I'm like, actually, I'd say that men are just more predisposed towards irrational risk taking, which is a negative quality of leadership, and you want to be able to provide any evidence to isolate for rational risk taking to demonstrate that this is a quality that men have that women don't. And then you're like, okay, I understand where you're coming from. That's where you then conceded the point. Like, this is
I'm just
unbearable.
trying to
I like,
say-
why are you still going? You're embarrassing yourself. at
dude,
this
because you're
point.
not letting me finish. I think irrational risk taking is better than no risk taking. So even if it's irrational, we agree that irrational.
You idiot,
right?
you're wrong. No, wrong. Wrong.
If somebody takes no
Wrong.
risk, how are they ever gonna?
Wrong.
How are they ever gonna progress?
Wrong. Let me ask you a question. Okay.
Let me hear it.
Family of 3 shows up to the casino door with his life savings in his hand. What should he do? Go inside and take that irrational risk, or go home and take no risk?
It depends. There has to be more into this. Does he need money by tomorrow? What does he
Yeah.
need this money for?
Money to pay
Oh, he
rent?
needs it tomorrow, or what's gonna happen? They're gonna lose their house.
Let's just assume that he needs to.
Then
make
you better
$1,000
go in
by the
there.
end
You
of the
better
month.
go in there, and statistically, okay, I tell you what to do right now. You're gonna play. We're gonna go to the roulette table, right? Okay,
Wait, no,
you gotta give me money.
Wait, are you trying to rationalize the risk?
Yeah, but if you consider irrational, there's a way to rational. Even if it's considered irrational, you can still rationalize to
Chad.
make it a better, statistically make it a better outcome. I mean,
Chad.
if we need the money short term, it's the only. I mean, what else are we gonna do to get this money?
So yeah, so literally pro gambling. So
I mean, I do like
pro-gambling?
gambling. I do like gambling,
you-
but
you've
I'm a
lost.
successful
You're
gambler.
cooked.
I make money off of it, actually.
No, you're cooked. You're so fucking cooked. You're so cooked. You're so cooked. Yeah. So yeah, you could technically hold a consistent view on risk taking and how that would relate to making men better at leading than women if you literally promote gambling is a good thing. Dude. All right. For the 2.1 thousand people hanging out with us in here today, I really got to use the restroom. And plus, we just need to restart because it looks like our live is pretty cooked. I'm going to be right back in like literally 30 seconds. Just click on my profile. Make sure to come right back in. We're going to try to beat the following glitch by double tapping, by sharing, by spamming the comment again. We're going to try to beat the following glitch.